back to the Sports Rock Show.
Rock.
As promised, we're going to talk about the hottest team in baseball, a team very close to our hearts, the Cleveland Indians.
Go Tribe!
Yeah, roll Tribe, baby.
The Windians.
The Indians, I like it. They may be fresh off a 2-game, I'm not really going to call it sweep because it was only 2 games. They're losing 2 in a row to Detroit. But they came back last night, put a thumping on the Red Sox, and Terry Francona's return to Fenway Park as a manager of another team. He did return as a celebration of the World Series team or whatever, but the Tribe did Tito proud. So, right now, the Indians are, I believe, a game and a half in first?
Half game.
Half game in first?
Because Detroit.
I thought Detroit lost last
No,
night.
they came back. They were down 5-2.
Oh, did they?
come back and won by 1.
Okay.
Yes.
Cabrera homered again.
Yeah, Melky homer to win it for him.
Miggy, you mean?
Yeah, Mickey.
Yeah, he's been lighting it up lately. Unfortunately, he lit it up against the Indians pretty good.
He lights up against everybody.
He
He's a
does.
quality ball player.
He's batting almost 400.
He's a quality ball player.
It's the end of May, and the dude is batting like 380 something.
Well, he won the Triple Crown last year. He
that's
could do
sick.
it again this year.
He very well could.
He's an excellent ball player.
But your Windians are 27-19 as it stands, 8 games above 500, half a game ahead of Detroit. The starting pitching, I think I speak for all of us whenever I say it's been much better than we expected, and that has been the key, I think, to Cleveland's success of so far this year. They had a cold start, but they've really heated up. They went on that tear where they won like 12 of 15 or something like that.
They've actually had a pretty good stretch here.
Yeah,
Of
they have.
victories.
The last month, probably month and a half.
Yep.
I know that they did a 4-game sweep of Seattle. It's tough to sweep any team 4 games.
Well, this was the second time they did it against Oakland
Also,
also.
Oakland 4 straight, too.
It's the first time they swept Oakland 4 straight since 1995. I'm not saying, I'm just saying. Might be a little magic in the air at the Prague in Cleveland, Ohio.
I like the thing.
Right now, what are we thinking about this team, James?
Right now, I like a lot of what I've seen. I'll tell you what, the acquisitions they made in the offseason are tremendous.
Absolutely. I believe Mark Reynolds is still leading the American League in homers? Or is he now maybe like 1 behind?
No, he's a couple behind.
Couple behind?
Davis of Baltimore has like 15, I think.
Really?
And Reynolds has 12.
12? Okay.
But I think the acquisitions they made in the offseason were huge. I think one of the biggest acquisitions they made in the offseason was getting Tito Francona, man.
I agree.
And him coming in, was you and I talked about this, when he became manager for any of these moves were made, getting Swisher or anyone else, he wasn't coming in here unless they were willing to open their purse and bring players in, and they did. It was almost automatic. When he came in, next thing you know, they're signing players. And they're not just signing lackey players, they're signing quality players, which has proven to be tremendous for them this year. You mentioned the starting pitching. I'll tell you what, their starting pitching, yes, is a little bit more of a surprise than I thought it was going to be, but I'm going to tell you something right now, that's also going to be their Achilles heel through this season. And it will be. They still need to add another quality starter to this team. And they need to do it. I think they've got a team this year that can compete, but they're going to have to add another quality starting pitcher to this unit because Ubaldo Jimenez, I don't give a shit. That son of a bitch blows. He sucks. They went and spent way too much money on him.
He sucks.
Masterson has played very well for him. They get McAllister is pitched well also. Other than that,
McAllister's been very well.
According to Jason
it's
Stanford,
hit and miss.
I'm just saying,
the other pitching.
according to Jason Stanford, the McAllister Masterson 1-2 punch is the best in baseball. Just saying.
Well, I don't think it's bad at all. I'm happy with that. But two guys
ain't the best in baseball.
2 guys aren't now. It's not the best. I didn't say it was the best. I said I'm happy
Jason
with it.
Stanford did, and he's the analyst.
Well, I'm happy with those 2, but I'm just saying is it's not going to be enough to carry us to where we want to be this year. We still need to get us another quality starting pitcher. I think that I'm not saying that'll get us to the World Series, but I think that'll get us a step closer to getting to the playoffs. I like what they did. I love the team we've got. There's a lot of unity there. They play hard for each other. A lot of quality on this team. A lot of quality characters. John, be bringing him in? No, he doesn't have the bat he used to have or not, but he does have leadership, and he's willing to come in and help teach these young kids. Same thing with bringing Swisher in. He's a more of a veteran. Bourne, more of a veteran. These guys are guys that can actually help this team.
They're veterans, but they're still young.
Well, other than Jambi, but yeah.
Well, yeah,
Swisher and
sure.
Bourne, yes, very
I
much
think
so.
Swisher's
Reynolds coming in was a huge plus to this team.
32,
Yes.
but Bourne, I believe, is still in his 20s.
He might be 30.
So's Reynolds. Reynolds is like 27 or 28. Stubbs is still pretty young.
Yeah, there's no over the hill. The only one that would be considered would be a guy that was actually considered for a managerial job was Jambi, and bringing him in here was kind of like having an extra manager on your team, quite honestly, because he can relate well to these kids and he teaches them.
They've finally got some veteran leadership.
Very much so.
Which is something they
lack.
really didn't
And
have.
a couple of the guys that they picked up, like Bourne,
Swisher.
come from winning organizations.
Yes,
Absolutely.
yes, very much so.
And I think that Nick Swisher's attitude, his positive attitude, has become infectious.
Well, everyone loves the man.
You
And
can
need
tell that this team is having a lot of fun. Like, Francona was on part of the interruption earlier. And he said, I'm not going to be coy about it. These guys are a blast to be around. We're having a good time, and it's showing on the field. And it is. Another huge thing for the Indians has been the additions of Rayburn, Gomes, Avilas. They finally got a bench. We've said this before.
Yeah.
We'll say it
Yes.
again. You finally got guys you can plug in to play positions to either give guys a rest or if you have injuries, you can plug them in and you're not really losing much. Michael was out for 3 weeks with a lacerated finger? That's when they started going on that tear. Swisher was out for 3 or 4 of those games. Not that those guys aren't important, but you've got guys that can step up and fill those holes.
I agree with
Whereas
that.
before you were turning to Shelly Duncans and Johnny Damons.
Well,
And that was on top of a lineup that was already anemic to begin with.
No, you hit that right.
So-
I was getting ready to say that. Our lineup wasn't very good anyhow, and then you got to go to the bench, and they're even worse than what's in your lineup. So, yeah, you're doomed.
Right.
You're doomed.
Right.
Now we have a bench. Matter of fact, we have a bench strong enough we can send people down. You don't miss a beat. Like Francona times, if he has to replace a person here and there, he has to send the guy down. It's like, that's a quality player you're sending down.
Yeah.
Well, the Indians just passed the quarter poll of games played. They're the 43rd or 44th team. And the question for them is still as it was when we first started, is starting pitching.
Absolutely.
They live and they die by it. There's no doubt.
Most teams do.
Yes, they do.
If not all teams do.
You're right.
You can have a nice lineup, but if you can't get people out,
That's the Angels
and,
about
and,
that.
And in their case, they need, you don't have to be overpowering, but you need to get into the 6th or 7th inning. Then you can
Right.
turn it over to the bullpen.
Right.
But some of these guys, Ubaldo had 3 or 4 starts there that he did well, and then
A mirage.
the other night that we saw Ubaldo rear his ugly head that we've seen too many times. But even he has run into the situation, even when he was pitching well, you've got to get into the 6th or 7th inning. You can't. Some of these guys get 5 innings maybe, and they've got 100 and some pitches already thrown.
Right.
You've got to turn over the bullpen. Well, that's okay for a little while, but eventually you're going to tax the bullpen. Of course, the bullpen has been added. There's, you can talk about the additions of Avilas and Gomes and them to that bench, which is great. But the additions of Sean Albers to that bullpen
Yes.
and Rich Hill
Rich Hill's
yes,
been
have been
absolutely.
substantial.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
On top of the 1, 2, 3 punch of Smith, Pastano, and Perez.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. This team.
And another guy I don't know if he could project to being a starting pitcher. I don't know if they're interested in doing that. He's young enough. I would possibly look into it. Is Cody Allen? Cody Allen's a flamethrower.
He is.
Well,
He is.
now here's a two-way with a pitcher like that. Possibly, maybe making him a starting pitcher, or that could be your closer of the very near future.
Yeah, he could.
I mean, he could go either way there, possibly.
He
He could actually go either way, I think.
He could be somebody that, because he's a flamethrower, he's a strikeout guy. that they could move into the closer role, and that could make Chris Perez expendable. Could. He's a high dollar guy.
Yeah, but he might be a guy that you could go get, somebody might have a pitcher, another starting pitcher that you might be able to use and maybe kind of use him as, okay, we need a starter, you need a closer.
Yeah.
They might be able to work a deal like that out with somebody, because I think Allen, I agree with you there, he possibly could go either way. I could see him more as a guy that could actually be a freaking standout closer, because he is a freaking.
He's one of the few starting pitchers,
flamethrower.
or one of the few relief pitchers I have noticed that when he comes in, he pitches out of the windup. He does not
Yeah,
pitch
he
out.
does.
Does
I
not pitch
never
out of
really
the
paid
stretch.
much attention, but
Most
you're
of
right.
these pitchers anymore, when they come in, they pitch out of the stretch
Yes, they
automatically.
do. Yep.
He does not. He pitches out of the windup until he gets somebody on base. That makes me think, well, maybe this guy, obviously his arm would have to be stretched out because he doesn't pitch.
Yes.
Right. Not
Yes.
used to pitching 6,
And
7
he would be
innings.
somebody that would be projected that maybe not this year. He's probably going to land in the role that he's in this year, unless you would look to move Perez in July for a starting pitcher. But that or somebody that next year you say, okay, we're gonna try Allen as a starter. We're gonna stretch him out in over the winter, send him to winter ball, spring training, and try to get him to be if he can start out. Maybe he can't only start out and give you 5 or 6. He's not strong enough yet, but he throws hard. He's got a nice assortment of pitches. But I can look at it as James said, with him being as a closer, with the heat that he brings. That would make Perez a guy that's making a lot of money.
Yes, he is.
To move for a starting pitcher.
See, but I think also,
Or even Pastano could be.
that's exactly where I was going with
Well,
that.
I think we have options.
still move Perez, and you could have Pastano come in, or even, to be honest, Smith could probably do it. I mean, obviously, I think Pastano, to me, would be the better candidate for the position. Because there was already talk before of moving Perez in the offseason and sliding Pastano into that closing role, which he's more than capable of
Well,
doing.
usually when you look at a closer, you're looking at a guy that's got strikeout potential.
Yeah.
He doesn't give up a lot of ground balls or fly balls. He strikes people out. Perez is a hard thrower. He looks to strike people out. Allen looks to strike people out. Joe Smith, not so much. Not that he can't strike people
Right.
out. Vinny Pastano can strike people out.
Yeah.
A little bit more experienced. So probably if they went more towards Pastano, if they would trade Perez, probably Pastano would slide into that role, just be out of experience factor this year. But Allen certainly would be a guy that would be looked at in the future as a closer. Though I would look at him as a starter, but this season is probably a lost cause for that. I mean, you'd have to send him down and stretch him out, and because I don't think you can start him at the major league level if he's only used to pitching an inning or 2. I mean, that's
Right.
that's a whole lot of the guy.
Yeah, it is.
You have to,
You'd have to send him down to Columbus and work for 2 months probably to stretch him out so he can throw 6 innings.
yeah, because you do, especially in pitching. That's a very physical aspect of baseball's pitching.
What are we thinking right now of Trevor Bauer? I think we all agree he's not ready yet. But is this somebody that we see a lot of potential in, or is this kind of one of those deals where we kind of took a risk on him?
Well, we saw him. Sprock was at the game, the doubleheader
Absolutely.
against the Yankees here.
He didn't pitch that terribly bad.
No, he didn't. I didn't think he did.
No,
He doesn't throw a lot of strikes. He gets
watched
down
his
in the count a
warm-up.
lot.
Escapade, and that's a little off the charts. I just don't see how that works out for somebody that throws. I mean, he started out throwing 10 feet away, 12 feet away, maybe, and then he kept moving back, and eventually he's halfway across the field throwing. Does it stretch you out? Yeah, but my God, by the time
You wore out.
he probably threw 25 or 30 balls.
Oh, at least.
Some of them were short, some of them were long.
Yeah.
But I mean, before you even go out and pitch and you throw 75 or 80 pitches in a game, not to mention the fact that you throw 8 per inning, warming up.
Yes.
You're looking at the guy threw 100 pitches. He threw a hell of a lot more than that because he's throwing 7 or 8
More like
between innings.
150, right.
Now those aren't. He's not. I don't want to say he's firing the ball in there when he's warming up. He's throwing it hard enough.
Yeah. He does that little thing where he runs
So,
up on the
those-
mound
those-
and throws it.
Yeah, he's got that little Happy Gilmore hop and
Yeah.
wings it or whatever. So I mean, that's all well and good. I just don't see where his workout regimen there between games or before he pitches is beneficial to him. Maybe it is now, but I can't see in the long run when he's 28 years old he's still doing that. I just don't see it.
Right.
The guy that's in the minors that is lighting it up is Carlos Carrasco.
I was just going to ask about him.
Carlos
What's the update on
Carrasco has pitched, I want to say his last 5 starts, his ERA is under 2. He's striking out guys at a 3-to-1 ratio versus walks probably. He has been lights out.
Why hasn't he been brought back up?
Well,
I know he's
his-
suspended.
His
But
problem is he faces an 8-game suspension that has to be served concurrently.
So he would have to be on your roster for those games.
I mean, you can't bring him up for 3 games and then pitch him a game and then send him down or whatever, then bring him back up in 4 games. I mean, he has to be on the roster.
so why don't we just bite the bullet and do it now and get it over with?
I think they're trying to figure out the best way possible to minimize that type of situation. Maybe around the All-Star break, they've got some days off. They think that maybe they can bring him up and pitch him, and then have him sit for 4 days, and then have the time off of the All-Star break, and then come back for 4 games. Put him in the back of the rotation to where he pitches and then he misses 4 games. Then he starts and then he can miss 4 games because he'll be on his regular turn rotation.
Yeah.
I think that's what they want to try to do, which you're going to have to sit on him for a couple of months, month and a half anyway. And if he continues to pitch like this in Columbus, he'll have to be brought up. Unless this pitching staff,
Especially if Kluber keeps pitching as bad
Kluber
as he's been pitching.
Kluber has pitched okay. I mean, I don't think
He's
been
given
great.
you a fair, for what you have with him, what you have with him.
I'm not impressed with Kluber.
Well,
I'm more impressed with Casimir, and I'm not that impressed with him either, to be honest.
well, that's why we need it. Eventually we're going to have to face the fact that we're going to have to bite the bullet with Carrasco sooner or later.
You're gonna, I absolutely.
We're gonna have to do that.
Well, you just try to minimize the
damage,
of,
yeah.
I mean, you can't bring him up and pitch him and then let him sit for 7 games and then pitch him again. You're throwing him all out of whack.
Right.
So I think they're looking at the schedule and trying to figure out, well, can we bring him up now and let him sit for 3 games and then hit the All-Star break, and then after 4 games in the All-Star break, bring him back to where he would miss some, he would sit for a while, but you'd miss
Can
some
they
games.
pull him up for 3 games, send him down to the minors,
No.
let him start, and then bring him back?
No, it has to be, those games are consecutive. He has to be on your major league roster for those
Yeah, he would
games.
have to start, and then he'd have to sit 7 games, or 8 games,
Yeah.
and then start again.
Yeah, you can't bring him up and put him back down.
But if he
That's what the
but
Columbus
if he pitches, and then say there's a 3-day break, and then the All-Star break comes, and then there's 4, I think they're all 4 days during the All-Star break,
Yeah.
and then come back and you play 4 or 5 games. Put him in. You can shuffle your rotation around. Every team's going to shuffle their rotations after
Right.
the All-Star break. To where he would come in as your 5 starter probably, and then sometime later in the season, if you're still in contention, sometime try to work him back in an off day here, and then you move him up a day. Maybe next thing you know, he's a 5 starter. Now all of a sudden by September he's your 3 starter.
Yeah.
If you can pull that off.
Yeah.
And he's a young guy, so. But he is coming off Tommy John surgery.
Yeah.
Um,
Right.
But he's also another guy that's, quite frankly, the guy that had his head in the game.
Yeah.
Because you're talking about a guy that was suspended, missed all of the following year because of an injury, and then comes back and is suspended 8 games right off the bat this year for throwing at somebody.
And I don't think you really threw
And he's
that.
going to appeal that,
Yeah.
and then maybe you can get it knocked down from 8 to 7 or 6, which is any
It would be nice to get
Help
it
you
down,
can
down
get.
from 8 to 4.
anything you can get.
That would be nice, because then he wouldn't have to miss a start.
Yes, if he get knocked down from 8
Even
to 4,
5.
you may see him in the rotation before the break.
Right.
If there's a decision on his appeal before the All-Star break. And I don't see why there wouldn't be.
I don't see why there wouldn't be either.
It seems to me, though, in baseball, when appeals are made, it's forever before, if they're ever even.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, I don't see why it would take that long.
Bud Selig's a kind of a douche.
Oh, well, sure he is. There's no kind of a douche about it. He is a douchebag.
Well, I'm not all that, to be quite honest with you, I think it was a pretty much a knee-jerk reaction when they suspended him anyway.
I don't think they should have suspended him the second time. I don't think he hit that guy on purpose. I don't think he threw at him intentionally. But,
Well, see, the only reason that they did it was because of past incidents.
Well, yeah.
That's one, and it's not really fair.
no,
and
the
it's
dude
not
missed
fair.
over a
Well,
year.
they did the same thing back in the day.
To Jared
Wright.
Wright. Yep. And they sure did.
They fucked him up a little bit.
Mike Hargrove still to this day thinks that really screwed with his psyche. It might have been one of the... Now, obviously, it wasn't the reason why he fell apart and was never the pitcher they thought he would be. But, that gets to you. If you start thinking you can't pitch inside,
Right.
that's going to totally screw everything up because
Right.
a pitcher has to be able to pitch inside.
Absolutely.
They have to.
Absolutely. If you're thinking in the back of your mind, well, if I pitch inside and if I hit this guy, I could be facing another suspension,
Right.
whether I intentionally hit him or not.
Right.
Uh,
And I'm from the old school. When you give up a home run, you bean them the next time.
Well,
That's the way it
Well,
goes.
you're headed to a suspension.
That's baseball. That's the way you play baseball.
In this day and age, you're headed to a suspension if you do that.
You're right. And I think that's BS, to be honest.
Well, I do agree.
I really do.
Well, you're playing old school ball in a new school league.
Yeah, but that's one rule I like.
You know,
Well, right now,
That's
it
one
would
old
be-
school
if
way out.
MLB lets the players govern the game, it would be fine. But when somebody
Right.
stands above them and says, well, this ain't right, I would suspend him or whatever.
Right.
Players will take care of themselves. They'll police
Yeah,
themselves.
because if you
They always
go
have
out
in the
there,
past.
because
They
you
always have
can't
in the
because you
past.
can't go out there and start beaning players because then the other pitcher's going to start beaning your guys.
Well, see, that's the
So
point.
you've got to look out for each other.
That's
Well,
where the players would say they would police themselves.
And I hate seeing the fact is, okay, the guy from Boston beans Swisher. Okay, well, the next inning or whatever, then Masterson hits Ortiz. Well, Masterson's warned.
Right. Not the other
Nothing
guy.
is said to the Boston pitcher.
Right.
Masterson's been warned. You do it again, you're out.
Yep.
Well, I mean, what's fair about that?
There is nothing fair about it. It's bullcrap. No, it's not.
That
It's
brings
total
me
flat-out bullshit.
back to the old days of Pedro Martinez tossing Don Zimmerman to the ground.
Oh, poor Zimmy.
The players could police themselves and it wouldn't be a outrageous, crazy freaking league.
No.
They always were able to do it in the past,
Right.
they can continue to do it.
But
now.
there has been one guy killed during a baseball game, got hit in the head and played for the Cleveland Indians.
Ray Chapman.
Yep. I think he's the only one to date, but it has happened.
Well, those guys were wearing helmets back then.
Right, and I also learned this quick fact for Sprock fans, that's why now, anytime a ball gets scuffed or gets dirty, they switch out balls, because the reason why he got hit is because the ball was so dirty he couldn't see it. It got so brown, he couldn't see it until it had already hit him.
Well, they don't have any problem changing out balls now.
It's
They do
almost
it
every
every
pitch. It's
Yeah.
almost every pitch. They must go through hundreds of balls to
Well,
get
and they used to back in the day too. Anytime a player would flip a ball into the stands, that was like a $25 fine.
Really?
And eventually, Major League Baseball got the idea. It's like, hey, you know what? We manufacture so many baseballs and stuff. That's pretty cheap public relations to have players flip
Right.
the balls to fans.
Right.
So they wised up and said, hey, go ahead, do it. Now you see it all the time. These guys are always flipping balls in
Yeah.
the stand because they're not being fined for it. It's now considered good PR by MLB.
Mm-hmm.
But before, back in 30 years ago, 40 years ago,
Yeah, they did get fined.
They would be fined for throwing.
Well,
balls
to
in
this
the
day
stands.
in the NFL, if a kicker kicks the ball and the net doesn't catch it and it winds up in the stands, they ask for it back.
Well, the NFL doesn't carry 6 dozen.
No, they don't, but it
Baseball
wouldn't
players.
hurt them to leave a ball in the stands every now and again.
No,
A football costs a lot more than baseball does.
Yeah, but they've got tons of those footballs. They use different ones
yeah,
for
and
kickoffs.
you're talking about a multi-billion-dollar industry.
Well, that's
Right.
true. Yeah,
Right.
this is true. This
Right.
is true.
So, yeah.
Pretty sure a football or two every week would be okay.
Yes, it would.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, that'll do it for this segment of the Sports Rock Show. Rock and roll! Join us for the next one where we'll do a little bit of true false for you.